Welcome into a Tuesday edition of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. Just Fulton Caster here with you this afternoon. Jake LeBon has the day off. He is in Kansas City doing some other work for himself. So just me today as we ride through a solo afternoon on the second day of the month of May. The weather is fairly nice in the capital city, about 60 degrees right now, which is absolutely lovely. Would like it to be just a tad bit warmer, but I mean, I'm not going to complain a little bit here. I might be a noted cold weather fan guy, but I would prefer it finally getting just a tad bit warmer. I won't start complaining about heat until we hit like 88 to 90 again, and then you will start hearing me consistently complain about the heat again. We have a jam-packed edition of the show for you today, coming up on 580 WIBW. We talked a little bit yesterday about the Chiefs rookies and kind of broke down the draft class. I want to look at and get a first look start on the expectations we should have. And those expectations will obviously change as we go through things like rookie minicamp and the offseason and training camp and OTAs and all that stuff. But right now, before an ounce of football is played, what should be our baseline expectations for all of these rookies based on the depth of the rooms that they are in? Based on what they have around them, what veterans are on the team around them, what should be our baseline expectations to start at with these players and give us a reasonable way to go on before they start playing any sort of meaningful football as well. Matt Derrick is going to join me at the bottom of this hour, from ChiefsDigest.com. We're going to chat about this Chiefs rookie class, as well as the breaking news. The Chiefs are officially declining the fifth-year option on running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We'll break down all that with Matt as well. We are going to talk some Royals today. The Royals begin a 10-game homestand this evening as they take on the Baltimore Orioles starting tonight for a 3-game series. And I want to look at Royals pitching. Jake and I talked about it a little bit yesterday that the pitching and the hitting are both having issues right now. And I want to look at the pitching and most notably, where are they faltering? What is specifically happening? And more importantly, how reinforcements could be on the way sooner than you think. I'm also going to look at the homestand that's coming up for the Royals and what makes this a good homestand. It's just me today, which means I don't have to deal with what Jake thinks about what makes the good homestand. I got to bring up what I think realistically makes it a good homestand. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at what they need to do over this 10-game stretch coming up, going into that May 11th deadline that Jake and partly me created for this Royals team and what we should take from it. JJ Piccolo also spoke to the media in Kansas City today. He was on a radio station in Kansas City this afternoon and some interesting comments he made about the team. I will look into those as well. Everyone Loves the List. Dan is going to join me both for Everyone Loves the List and CrossTalk today. So the bottom and back half of the 1 o'clock hour will feature heavily our good friend Dan Lucero from 580 Sports Talk. As always, you can join in on the conversation on our text line, 785 272-9429. You can also give us a shout on our Floating Place Wine and Spirits phone line, 785-272-9429. And then, of course, in the live comment section of our YouTube live stream, go to youtube.com. Sports on 580 is the YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. You can jump in the live comment section as well. I have one bit of Royals news I will get to at the top of the show here, and we will break it down more later. But Maikel Garcia has been called up to the big league roster. I will break this down more as we go and as we get into more of the show, but it is worth noting at the top here. Maikel Garcia is in Kansas City. He has been called up. Nicky Lopez is going on the injured list with appendicitis. So, also, I hope Nicky is doing okay. Appendicitis, nothing to sneeze at. Can be a bit of a difficult thing. Not a fun thing to come back from. So, I hope Nicky's okay. Gets his appendectomy. I assume he's going to end up having an appendectomy. He gets that done. Everything goes okay. Hope he has a nice, smooth recovery. But Maikel Garcia is up with the big league club. Likely will start tonight. We don't have a lineup yet for the Royals this evening against Baltimore. But I will look at the impact Maikel Garcia is going to have on this team and other roster moves the Royals might make either today or later on this week as well, coming up in the back part of today's show. But we will begin with the Kansas City Chiefs, as this is a very Chiefs-centric hour of programming. So the Chiefs rookie class has 7 rookies a part of it. Felix Udike-Uzama, B.J. Thompson, Shamari Connor, Nick Jones, Keandre Coburn, Wanya Morris, and Rashee Rice. Those are the Chiefs' 7 rookies that are going to be a part of rookie minicamp coming up this weekend. Chiefs will have rookie minicamp coming up this weekend with a couple of invites from other places as well, including a couple of Washburn grads. Peter Apple and J.J. Letcher will be a part of Chiefs rookie minicamp coming up this weekend. But with all of those guys, we've done a lot of just discussing who they are, what they're about, what they think they will do. And Jake and I touched on this briefly yesterday about what we think each guy will do in year one. We briefly hit on it, but I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive on today's show of what these guys will do in year one and mainly go at position group by position group, because I think that is where the chances for the expectation to be set really come from. I think it all stems from what is the position groups they're a part of, because I think that depends on how much growth or opportunity that they will get to play in year one, depending a little bit on what they do in OTAs and training camp and yada, 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 and all that stuff. But we have to have a baseline to begin. That's what's important. You have to have a baseline. That's the best important part of any single test, is you have to have your baseline scores. And so I want to look at the rookies and get a baseline. So let's start with the edge, with the Chiefs' first-round pick and Felix Udike-Uzama, King Felix out of K-State, and B.J. Thompson, the edge out of Stephen F. Austin. For both of these guys, talent being kind of pulled out of the room here, and not talking about specific numbers, really. I think we need to make sure we don't think either Felix Udike-Uzama or B.J. Thompson, Felix a lot more than B.J. Thompson based on draft position, that we don't put the weight on either of those guys to be massive impact players in year one in the idea of raw counting stats, because the edge rotation is fairly solidified. You have Mike Dana, who's going to get a lot of run. You have Charles Omenihu, who's going to get a lot of run because he's brought in as a free agent. We know what George Karlaftis is going to do. Those three guys right there are going to probably get a bulk of the run on the rotation on the edge. Now, immediately, Felix Udike-Uzama probably slides into the fourth spot on the edge in that rotation, which is going to give him more run than B.J. Thompson. But he's probably still not going to be used. Let's put some actual numbers to this, because at least for me, numbers are good. Numbers are incredibly important. Let's look at our good friend George Karlaftis, not George Karstens. I began pulling up the wrong player here. I need George Karlaftis, not George Karstens. For George Karlaftis last season, he played in 64% of the defensive snaps. He played 730 defensive snaps on the season. I think that is where we need to maybe begin with Felix Udike-Uzama, but almost less. And this has nothing to do with the talent of Felix as a player. I think Felix is a very talented player, and I think if he can develop the way he should be expected to develop, that he might take that amount of a snap share as he goes. Maybe he becomes the starting edge alongside Karlaftis instead of Mike Dana or Charles Omenihu. Or maybe for whatever reasons, they kick Omenihu inside a lot more often. I don't know what the plan is there. But I think for now, Felix should be seen until we get more out of OTAs and training camp. Felix, I think our baseline expectation should be rotational edge. Should be maybe he picks up 3 to 4 sacks. He plays, 60% of the snaps, maybe. Something like that in year one. And why I want to make that Felix's baseline is I don't want us to see him have maybe, and again, I have to hit it depending on what happens in OTAs and training camp that can sometimes change these levels. But I don't want us to maybe see Felix, get like 4 sacks year one and have what is overall a fairly good start and maybe only play like 60% of the snaps. And we all start going, well, why isn't he playing more? Why isn't he being used? And all those different conversation points. That's why I think our baseline needs to start with an idea of, 60% of the snaps, being rotational, not necessarily being a starter. I think Felix, especially by next season, will be able to seize the idea of being a starting edge opposite George Karlaftis. I think in 2024, your two starting edges who play the bulk of your snaps on the outside are Udike-Uzama and George Karlaftis. I feel like that is what will happen. But in year one, I think we need to understand Felix might play a little bit less, might be brought along a little bit more slowly, and make sure that we don't get a wrong idea of what the Chiefs think of him as well. Because that's the other problem if you don't manage the expectations properly. Is, we can see Felix play 60% of the snaps, and if we did not set ourselves up correctly and think he should be playing a lot more, we might all of a sudden think, oh man, the Chiefs must hate Felix. When it's like, no, that's not the case. It's just it was never going to be more. You know, in a way, I put it kind of akin to Sky Moore last season. I think some of us were disappointed with what happened with Sky Moore, but without realizing what the proper expectations should have been for him in year one, for what he should have done in year one to maybe frame it better. So that's the idea with that. BJ Thompson, I don't expect to see much of him a lot in year one if he does make the 53. Because the other thing, we assume these guys will all make the 53-man roster. There is room for all 7 of these guys to make the 53, given what Jake and I discussed when we were kind of previewing the roster about 3 weeks or so ago. But you have guys that come in for camp workouts. You'll have guys from rookie mini camp this weekend. You'll have guys from OTAs and other spots where, some guys may steal some spots. And so there's not a guarantee that all 7 of these guys do make the roster. I think if they do, though, for BJ Thompson, probably going to be a special teamer. We'll probably find some use on special teams that will kind of put him in a little bit of a better spot to succeed in some of the different things he can do. And I think he might get some specialty snaps on defense. Know that for BJ Thompson, there probably won't be a lot of counting sets this year. And it doesn't mean that he is not a useful player if he does meet the 53. It's just seeing him in a different light and some of the things that he will do. Going to the other room that's going to have 2 potential rookies in it, the defensive backs with Shamari Connor and Nick Jones. Now, Shamari Connor was drafted as a safety, while Nick Jones was drafted as a corner. However, I put them both under the umbrella of defensive back for this very, very specific and particular reason. L'Jarius Sneed was a safety when he was drafted. L'Jarius Sneed's position when drafted was safety. He then immediately transitioned to corner. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do with Shamari Connor, the defensive back out of Virginia Tech, but it would not surprise me if Shamari Connor maybe doesn't get as much run at safety and gets run at corner. I don't know. That's kind of why I'm using the umbrella term of defensive back here. That's the purpose. So with that, we need to look at all the defensive backs, safeties, and corners combined. Let's say Shamari Connor plays more of a safety role. Is he going to get run over Mike Edwards? I don't know. There's a chance. Is he going to get a run over Brian Cook? I don't think so. The Chiefs really liked what they saw out of Brian Cook last year. I really liked what I saw out of Brian Cook last year, particularly as the season went on and he got better and more comfortable. I have had to make an educated guess here on May 2nd. I would say the Chiefs starting safety pair is Justin Reed and Brian Cook. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. It's what I think will happen. But, with that in mind, if Shamari Connor makes the roster, it would have to probably be at the expense of a guy like a Deion Bush, a Mike Edwards, even a Najee Johnson. So I wonder, first off, how will that all fit with the numbers in the roster makeup? Because right now, let's put Shamari Connor as a safety. The Chiefs have 5 safeties. Now, they can make up for that with one less corner spot, but then you drafted a corner, Nick Jones. And the Chiefs do have an uncanny success rate on late round corners. So I'm fascinated to see how that shakes out. But at this moment on May 2nd, I think our expectations for Shamari Connor and Nick Jones should just be, can they get special team snaps? Because the Chiefs have so many other defensive backs in that room that the odds of either of those 2 guys making a larger impact in year one kind of small. That's kind of the idea with Connor, with Jones. Last piece of the defense here will be the defensive tackle and Keondre Coburn. Keondre Coburn is a pretty simple one for me. He's not going to play a ton of snaps. He'll probably be used on blatant rundowns. Keondre Coburn is going to basically be used as, if he makes the roster, will be we need a big body to eat up space in the middle, which, as I said yesterday, there is value with that. There's a lot of value with that. In the NFL, someone's just have a big, wide body who takes up space. But Keondre Coburn, you'll see him a handful of snaps. It won't be much. Maybe he gets some work on special teams, working on the interior of maybe the field goal block unit or things like that. But just, again, the idea of managing expectations. to the two offensive players who I think have the most fascinating way to try and manage what's going on. Wanya Morris is going to be in the right tackle competition. I do not think we need to view it as a disappointment if he does not win the right tackle competition. Wanya Morris has great physical tools, good size, good weight, great length. He's got really poor fundamentals, and that can take some time to coach up and figure out. So, with Wanya Morris, as long as he sticks on the roster and doesn't have to get practice squatted, it's a successful first year. Even if he doesn't take the right tackle job, even though I think by the end of the year he is your right tackle, or what ends up happening goes back to, as long as he's probably not just off the roster, his first year probably can be considered a success because he is coming from a place of needing to learn a lot of technique, which does just take a lot of time. It is not an easy process to try and work the technique and things like that. And then we finally get to Rashee Rice, who I think needs to get the treatment Sky Moore should have gotten in year one, because he's a rookie wide receiver coming into the Chiefs system, which is not an easy system to learn. And he does not have any pure number one traits that make you go, goodness, this guy is going to be an absolute, some kind of, not studs, but like nothing that's going to make you jump off the page in year one. Rashee Rice probably going to play not a ton of snaps. Like Sky Moore played 29% of offensive snaps last year. That's probably what Rashee Rice will do. I mean, Sky Moore caught 22 passes. That might be what Rashee Rice does. Rashee Rice might have a very light year one workload. That should not discourage anyone from thinking he can be a positive influence in year two. Much like Sky Moore, the idea should be Rashee Rice takes the year one to learn the playbook, learn the system, get comfortable with Patrick Mahomes, and then year two is when he can explode, which means if Rashee Rice does a lot more in year one and jumps on and takes more snaps and really shoots up the chart, great. That's awesome. But I think given the amount of receivers the Chiefs have, it's a very deep room right now. We need to just not think that Rashee Rice is going to come in and all of a sudden, Rashee Rice is going to take up wide receiver 3 snaps. That's not going to happen. Your top 3 wide receivers are Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Sky Moore. Like, that's this team right now. Then we got Richie James and Justin Watson, competing for snaps out there. Rashee Rice competing with them now as well. And then you got the Rosses on the practice squad and different things like that. That's kind of where I'm at for expectations. And for a lot of these guys, and I know UK Staters out there really do believe in Felix. And trust me, I believe in him too. I might be wearing a KU hoodie. I believe in Felix. I want to make that so abundantly clear. But I don't want us to put too much on his plate early, him specifically above all else. Him and Rashee Rice, really. Do not think these guys have to be superstars in year one. If they are, that is great. That is awesome. But I want us to just temper the expectations, knowing the depth of these rooms and that these guys can and honestly should be brought along a little bit slowly with a little bit of a nicer hand, because I think that will set them up for long-term success a lot better going forward. We're going to take our first time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is getting an expansion. We'll look at that coming up next. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster here with you this afternoon. Little piece of news I wanted to get to that I find absolutely awesome and amazing. This was just announced this morning at a little event at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City. Bob Kendrick, the fantastic president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, who is, I love listening to Bob Kendrick. I can listen to Bob Kendrick tell stories about Negro Leagues baseball players for, I'm not kidding, like an entire day. Like my entire day could just be listening to Bob tell stories. It'd be fantastic. There's going to be a new 30,000 square foot Negro Leagues Baseball Museum that will be built. They are getting a bigger space. It is going to be a $25 million campaign to build the new facility in Kansas City. And it is, the renderings are out. You can find them all across Twitter. The renderings are out. They look, it will be massive, which is so great. Well documented. I went to the museum for the first time back in February. It had been far too long, and I still can't believe I waited that long to go see it. It is fantastic. If none of you have ever been, please go. It is if you like baseball at all, or even just like things like history and learning, and even if you don't, everyone should go. No matter what you actually like, go. It is a great, informative time, a great piece, and I'm so happy that Bob Kendrick and the gang will get to build this new place and create even more lasting memories for one of the great chapters of baseball's history and of its forgotten chapters that was so important to where the game is today. Now we're going to take another time when we come back. Matt Derrick will join us from ChiefsDigest.com. Headed to Kansas City to speak to our good friend, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Covers the Chiefs, in my opinion, better than anyone out there. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, the NFL draft has now been concluded. Have you finally been able to get some rest?
Sort of. I have had some other deadlines, so I had like 3 hours of sleep last night. So I'm almost done with it, and after that, I think a nap is on the horizon.
Matt, I would definitely say, with the amount of deadlines you probably deal with and the fantastic work you put out, a gigantic nap, I think, is well-deserved in your future. With the NFL draft now concluded, what are just your first impressions? The Chiefs have a 7-player rookie draft class that's been picked, one pick in every single round. Kind of a weird, very even setup for them. What are your first impressions of this Chiefs 7-man draft class?
Yeah, you're right. It was kind of odd the way that they got there, but it was a fairly even draft class. And very focused on premium positions. I mean, the Chiefs didn't really venture out of anything other than what they said they were going to kind of do. I mean, Brett Veach last week told us, hey, you can't have enough guys in the trenches. You can't have enough wide receivers. You can't have enough defensive backs. And that's exclusively what the Chiefs went after. They were pretty laser focused on that. And And to a degree, I mean, that's what you're going to have when you've got a team that's the Super Bowl champion and technically is probably not going to have a ton of holes, especially, when they had the draft class that they had last year and the year before. It's hard to point to really a bunch of open positions, but I think they did pretty well. I mean, you're talking about a lot of athletes, a lot of guys who not only tested well, but had the production as well. So I don't think there's anything that was a real reach. They were certainly focused on the players that they wanted. And even though I don't think they probably, executed the first round the way that maybe they hoped that it would have gone, I think you could certainly say that if they still got a player they wanted in the first round. And then in the second, third, and fourth round, they continued absolutely hitting on the players that they preferred. And they were able to get up and make moves to make sure they got those players.
Last time we chatted last Friday, Matt, after day one of the NFL draft, we talked a lot about Felix Anudike-Uzomah, what he brings to the Chiefs. We did not get a chance to talk about the Chiefs' day 2 or day 3 picks because they had not yet been made. So looking at the day 2 picks of Rashee Rice, Wanya Morris, how do you think those two fit into this Chiefs team in year 1? And just what do you think the Chiefs saw in those two players that made them their choices on day 2, with both those guys being two dudes the Chiefs traded up to go get?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, hearing the Chiefs talk about and some of the comparisons and, and two really good comparisons when you're talking about them. Rashee Rice, was immediately getting kind of the Juju Smith-Schuster comparison as far as, size and the style of receiver. Not maybe a lot of the receivers that were being talked about going to the Chiefs were really more kind of in the Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman mold, these 5'10", 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", or even some smaller guys with a ton of speed. Rashee Rice is not that. I mean, he's a little bigger. He's got good speed, but not super. He's quick though. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, in space, he is pretty quick, but he's not like the elusiveness that you get with a Kadarius Toney or a Sky Moore. Those guys are in kind of a different category, but Rice is tough. I mean, that's one of the things they really liked about him is his physicality. You've heard Brett Veach, consistently saying he runs like a running back when he gets the ball in his hand. And, and you need those kind of guys. I mean, he's the kind of, player who can line up inside. They feel like do some of the physical stuff that maybe Juju Smith-Schuster did for them last year. I kind of put Sammy Watkins in that kind of category too. I mean, that's who you're talking about, even if Rice isn't quite as big as that, but he's got that physical nature. And with Wanya Morris, I mean, no doubt this was a player that the Chiefs really liked. And once you looked at it, once you got past kind of talking about, who are the plug and play left tackles, Wanya Morris is a really good right tackle. And even though he's got some left tackle experience and maybe that is some long-term upside, maybe he's a guy who can transition back and maybe be a left tackle at some point. Immediately, he is somebody who can come in and compete for that right tackle job. And don't know if he'll beat out Lucas Niang or not, but that is some good depth to have. And as we heard throughout the weekend from scouts, and I think Mike Morganzi too, another guy that they feel like has multiple backup capability at 4 different positions.
With Wanya Morris specifically, because he's maybe the pick. I don't know if I'm the most fascinated by, but maybe just I am. He's a guy who has the physical tools, the size, the weight, the length, that he could have been drafted a lot higher. The problem with Wanya Morris, from everything I've read and looked into, is the fundamentals. It's the technique, which if any team is going to be able to teach an offensive lineman how to play with better fundamentals and better technique, I'm going to put my money on Andy Heck and the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you think that what I guess the better way to put it, what do you think are the chances that Wanya Morris could beat out Lucas Niang and Darian Kennard, for that matter, for that right tackle job? And even more so, do you foresee Wanya Morris at some point being the starting right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023 in his rookie season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as things as possible. I mean, I think he could win the job outright. The questions the Chiefs have about, Lucas Niang is just they really don't know where he's at following that knee surgery. And with patella injuries, there's a lot of times that guys just are not themselves anymore. And they just don't know. I mean, even though he came back last year, he didn't get on the field for, an extensive amount of work. So as far as just how much he is back, and remember, Lucas Niang has dealt with some other injuries too. He had a hip injury coming out of college, I believe. So there's some things going on. Wanya Morris, I mean, a big part of it is just that he's lacked recent experience too. Played a lot at Tennessee, but then after the transfer to Oklahoma, was really a backup. 2 years ago, last year he did play, but missed a couple of games. So he still needs some raw, and like you said, I mean, he needs some technique improvement. But guess what? You can teach technique. You can't teach 6'5". You can't teach 307. You can't teach 35 and an eighth inch arms. I mean, those are just absolutely. If you wanted a picture of a generic left tackle to put into a frame, I mean, Wanye Morris would be it. And the Chiefs, I mean, they feel comfortable with Andy Heck and the coaching staff that they've got that they can put the fundamentals into it.
And I think that's the big thing. The Chiefs are banking on their coaching, and that's just, at least for when it comes to offensive line, I think a very good bet. Matt Derrick is my guest here on Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton here on 580 WIBW. Matt Derrick is, of course, covers the Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. All right, Matt, looking at some of the day 3 picks for the Chiefs, you got, Shamari Connor, Nick Jones, Keandre Coburn, BJ Thompson. Any one of those guys from the 4th round, the 5th round, the 6th, the 7th, any one of those 4 guys stand out to you as someone you're very intrigued by and what their role could be? Not necessarily just in year 1, but overall, does any of those 4 guys really stand out to you as an interesting prospect for the Chiefs as a rookie player?
The defensive linemen for sure. The good thing for both those guys is that, with where they were drafted, they're not going to be asked to come in and make contributions immediately. I mean, they'll be asked to be role players. But BJ Thompson just has an absolutely amazing set of metrics. I mean, he tested out of the park. He was a very good player at Baylor before, transferring to Stephen F. Austin. And so, hey, some of the questions are going to be level of talent. But, remember, too, Tershawn Wharton had a similar leap, if anything. I mean, he had a bigger leap as far as the competition that he faced at Missouri S&T and performed really well as a rookie. So I think B.J. Thompson can handle it, especially, given his past. He played at Baylor, so he's got some good experience there. And Coburn is another one of those guys that you just take a look at. Is a mountain of a man. I mean, that's one thing that the Chiefs have kind of lacked, has been trying to find that true nose tackle, a guy who can just line up over center and take on a couple of blockers, occupy some space. Chiefs were maybe hoping Danny Shelton was that guy last year, and that never really developed. Coburn could be that. I mean, he's huge. He's almost 6'6", he's a little short. He's shorter than that, excuse me. But 330, 340. I mean, he is got an extremely wide base. So I think it's really interesting. I mean, especially to have 2 guys on the defensive line that you get in that 3rd day that are kind of thunder and lightning. I mean, they're diametrically opposite. But both kind of just perfect body types for their positions. You got speed and you got bulk. I'm really interested in both of them because I think they fill a need that the Chiefs have just for role players immediately.
With the Chiefs, they have developed a few knacks in different areas across the past few seasons, especially under Brett Veach as the general manager and some of the different members of the personnel department. The Chiefs seem to be really good at finding middle to late round defensive backs and turning them into star players. I mean, just last year, Josh Williams and Jalen Watson played incredibly well in their run. L'Jarius Sneed was a 4th round pick who played well. The Chiefs have 2 more who could join that list of good late round defensive draft picks for the Chiefs, and Shamari Connor and Nick Jones. What do you think of both of those players? And do you think either of them fits a potential mold of the Chiefs maybe could strike gold yet again with another pair of late round defensive backs?
Yeah, the Chiefs certainly have the type when it comes to the defensive backs and on day 3 of the draft, and Brett Veach loves day 3. I mean, that's one of the things that's really kind of unique about him. I mean, there's probably a lot of personnel people around the league that you view Saturday as kind of a grind. I think it's Brett Veach's favorite day of the draft because he just loves getting into the nitty-gritty details for all these guys. But Chiefs have a type when it comes to these defensive backs, and they want to have tape. They want to have guys that were clearly productive in college and good players, but they also back it up with the athleticism, the matrices. I mean, all these guys that they've taken the last couple of years in the backfield have all been that way. I mean, they've been players who had good tape in college, that performed well in clutch situations and in stress situations and in big stages. And then, they've got the testing and they got the speed. There's no doubt. I mean, Nick Jones fits that category. Jamari Conner fits that. Nick Jones coming into a pretty good situation. And that is a 7th-round draft pick. I mean, he's coming into this defense. He's not going to be asked to do anything. He's going to be allowed to grow on his own. He's not going to get, and barring a bunch of injuries, he's not going to get thrown into the fire like the guys did last year. So he's going to have a chance to kind of grow. Connor is more interesting. I mean, he's going to be to that case too, because the Chiefs have, really 3, 4, 5 safeties that they already like. But he fulfills a unique role. And I'm very intrigued about what that tells me about maybe the future, because I was saying before the draft, hey, if the Chiefs are taking a safety, at a decent round in this year's draft, and they really truly target one, and when you trade up in the 4th round, you're targeting one. What's to say about Justin Reed and his future? He's going to be in Kansas City in 23, but his contract is built for an option and for an out for 24. Maybe you're drafting Connor with an eye towards next year, because I tell you what, he does a lot of the same things that Justin Reed can do. He can play any position, and he's got the versatility that the Chiefs would like. I mean, he's kind of the safety version of L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, both guys had versatility in college, played both positions, moved around, played corner, played safety, inside, outside, front end, back end. He's the kind of guy that you could absolutely position anywhere on the field.
Were you surprised the Chiefs went so defensive heavy in this year's draft, or did that, based on how the roster was being made up coming into the draft, make some sense to you?
I think it was a little bit dictated, certainly by need. I think it was also just dictated by how the Chiefs board kind of fell. There were some position groups, and wide receiver is a good example. I mean, I think it was pretty clear that, that there was a couple of receivers at the top end that if the Chiefs could have traded into the early 20s, that's probably where they were going to go. Weren't able to get that done. So then it's like, okay, you take the player you think is the best. And there certainly wasn't a receiver that the Chiefs felt was worthy of 31. That's why Felix went there, because they felt like he was. But then you get into the 2nd round, and Rashee Rice was a player that the Chiefs had really liked throughout the entire draft process. But like Brett said yesterday, you get after that, and then what's there? Well, I don't think the Chiefs really cared for the draft pool at receiver after the 2nd round, and the fact that they ignored it, I think is a pretty good indication of that. So you target the player that you like, you make sure you get that guy, and you move on. Cornerback, maybe it's a surprise to some people that they took that position, but Brett Veach acknowledged, and it was widely acknowledged, that cornerback was the deepest position group in this year's draft. So you get to the 7th round, I don't think there's any doubt that the best players left were probably going to be corners. So I think it depended a lot on just how the board stacked up. The Chiefs were pretty, strong as far as, saying they were going to stick to their board. And I think the draft picks indicated that, because I didn't think took a lot of reaches. They didn't take anybody that you're just scratching your head about saying, felt like you could have gotten that guy maybe in the 6th round or something. Didn't do that. So I think it's just a pretty solid strategy of sticking to their board. And if that meant going defense, because that's where the strength of the draft was, that's where you go.
Matt Tirick is my guest here on Mic'd Up. Matt covers the Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Tirick. All right, Matt, moving on to the current roster and the veterans a little bit here. 2 pieces of running back news I want to get to. First things first, this came out today. The Chiefs officially declining, or at least will officially decline, the 5th-year option on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Are you surprised by that move at all? And more importantly, what do you think that means for Clyde's future in Kansas City?
Yeah, it's definitely not a surprise. That would have been almost $5.5 million to pick up that option for 2024. And for a running back that right now is your 2nd or 3rd running back in the pecking order, that's too much. So no surprise there. I mean, and Clyde's still on the team. He's still with the Chiefs for 23, barring a trade or any change there. I mean, that's always still possible. But I mean, this is going to be a make or break season for Clyde. I mean, if he has a strong season, maybe he sticks in Kansas City, but it's becoming a more crowded backfield all the time. We'll see what happens. I actually don't think that a change of scenery wouldn't be bad for Clyde. I mean, I think that would probably be good, because every year it seems like we're talking about Clyde's coming back to to camp in the best shape of his career. And, we just haven't seen that translate into a full, healthy, productive season yet.
Another piece of running back news, Brett Veach spoke with the media yesterday and kind of alluded to this just a little bit. Jerick McKinnon apparently is moving closer and closer to a potential reunion in Kansas City. Have you heard anything new about that? Or if the Chiefs and McKinnon are close to finalizing some sort of deal? And if it comes through to fruition, does McKinnon just immediately for you slide back into that third down, helping with pass blocking, and I guess apparently best red zone threat the Chiefs have after all of his touchdowns last season? Where do you think McKinnon can slot in if he does come back?
Yeah, I'm told actually that Jerick is in the building today. So, signing could come as soon as today or in the next couple of days, but it looks like it's going to be before OTAs get started. And that was kind of the expectation. Jerick has been taking his time the last few times when he's been a free agent about making a decision. And there's no doubt, the Chiefs were always at the top of his list. So looks like it will get done again. And yeah, if it's not broke, I wouldn't fix it. Having Pacheco as really the primary guy on the first and second down, occasionally Jerick gets his own, drive, but other than that, third down, red zone, that's where he excelled last year. It's going to be hard to be as good as he was last year. He was certainly fortunate to have some good, moments, so you can't guarantee that it's going to be a replica of what he did last year. Because let's face it, that was the second best year of his career. And for a guy who's, into his 30s and, this is, I think, going to be his ninth year in the league, having career seasons isn't what you normally expect. But he's still so good. He's still, as long as he's got the speed and the agility, he's obviously a savvy runner with the football. So, yeah, I think that until Jerick loses it, you keep him in that role. It's a small, limited role, so he should be able to handle it without overburdening him.
All right, Matt, my final two questions for you, my two for the road. First things first, of the Chiefs rookies, of those 7 players, who do you think, as of now, I know we're even before rookie mini camps, there's a lot of time before the season starts. As of now, who do you think will have the biggest impact for the Chiefs among the rookies in year one?
I am going to go out on the limb to a degree and say I think it's going to be Wanya Morris because I think that he will eventually be the starter. Could be week 1. Who knows? But I think he'll get into the starting lineup the fastest and the earliest. Offensive lineman, it's hard because if he doesn't get in there, it's the starting lineup. He might never play. And so at least some of the other guys will. Rashee Rice will, it's always going to be a struggle for receivers and Andy Reid, but it's a good group, but I'm going to bet on Morris.
And finally, Matt, very strange since this is always such a Chiefs-centric and football-related conversation. I got a little bit of a baseball thing for you here, at least from the Kansas City area. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum announced that they're going to be moving to a much larger 30,000 square foot space. They're working on the project to get it started right now. First things, have you been to that museum yet? And even if not, what do you think it means for the area of Kansas City that something like that will get expanded upon and will bring even more people to Kansas City?
I'm ashamed to say I've only been to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum once, which, considering how many times I've seen, Ken Burns baseball, and especially for Buck O'Neil, that's an absolute travesty. But that is, it's so cool to hear that and to see it and everything, because Kansas City, it has such a rich baseball history. We kind of forget about it, but you go back to not only the Negro Leagues, but the minor leagues. Kansas City was such a big team for years before they were a major league city. This was a baseball town for a long, long time. And I think celebrating the roots and reminding people of that and giving an opportunity to connect to baseball in a new way, I think it's fantastic. So I'm all for it.
Matt Derrick covers the Chiefs better than anyone and also knows a little bit about the history of baseball in Kansas City, too. Matt, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. Have yourself a good rest of the day and probably try to get yourself a long overdue nap sometime tomorrow at least.
I like the way you think, Fulton. I appreciate it. Take care, my friend.
That is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Always a pleasure making to have Matt join us. Not often we get a baseball conversation part of our Chiefs moment there, but how to get Matt's opinions in Kansas City all the time. That'll do it for this hour of Mic'd Up. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, I'm going to take a look at Royals pitching and what exactly is going along and how Reinforced supposed to be coming in. And then Dean Lucero joining me for Everyone Loves the List and for CrossTalk. It is time for hour number 2 of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster with you, riding solo this afternoon. Jake LeBon has the day off. He will be back tomorrow. Jake was at a work conference this afternoon. That's what he's spending his day doing. So Jake, schmoozes with the people, talks with the folks, and I hold down the fort and do a lot of talking on the radio. We do equal work around here. But Jake will be back tomorrow, so just me today. So some of you are very happy. Some of you are very sad. Some of you are somewhere in between. I don't know what it is at that point, but I do thank you for joining me this afternoon here on Mic'd Up. Want to thank Matt Garrick, our good friends from ChiefsDigest.com, for joining at the bottom of the noon hour to chat all things Chiefs. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour of the show, we are going to get to the Kansas City Royals, and we're going to look at their pitching staff and the issues their pitching staff has had. We're going to look at where they have fallen off, what has happened to get there, and more importantly, now that we've hit the month of May, how reinforcements could be coming that could help out this rotation and get a few things back on track. We'll look at that as well. Everyone Loves the List in honor of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Dean Lucero is going to stop by and join me for Everyone Loves the List as we discuss our favorite exhibits of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Both Dan and I have been. We're going to discuss what are our favorite things about the museum when we have gone and seen it. Dan will also then stick around for CrossTalk as well. So if you like Dan Lucero and 580 Sports Talk, Dan's going to join me for a bunch of the show coming up this hour, so graciously donating his time. 2 o'clock hour, we'll get to looking at the Royals homestand and what could deem it to be a success. We'll also got some comments JJ Piccolo made on Kansas City Sports Radio earlier on this morning. Just a few things that I find notable to discuss from the Royals general manager. As always, you can join in on the conversation on our text line, 785-272-9429. You also give us a shout on our Fleming Place Wine and Spirits phone line, 785-272-9429. Then, of course, you can jump into the comment section of our YouTube live stream as well. Go to Sports on 580 on YouTube.com. Sports on 580 is the YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. And then you can jump in on the live comment section as well. Where do we begin in this 1 o'clock hour? And I know when I bring up the Royals, some of you groan, and I can't blame you. They are 7-22. That's really bad. Like, horrendously bad. Like, second worst record in Major League Baseball bad. Thank you, Oakland. And one of the biggest issues for the Royals that we thought was going to be an issue coming into the year, and then wasn't an issue, and then is an issue again, is Royals pitching. The Royals, remember, at one time were top 5 in MLB in ERA for a starting rotation. They were up there in fewest walks. They were up there in strikeouts. They were looking good. Well, folks, I am very sad to report that is all flipped on its head. As of right now, the Kansas City Royals are 26th out of 30 teams in starters ERA. They are 27th out of 30 teams in reliever ERA. They are 15th in the league in walks. They are 26th in the league in strikeouts. It's bad. It's a terrible, no good, very bad day. And it's every member of the starting rotation. Here are the win-loss and ERA numbers of every pitcher in the starting rotation for the Royals right now. Zach Greinke is 0-4 with a 6.10 ERA. Jordan Lyles is 0-5 with a 6.10 ERA. Brad Keller is 2-2 with a team-leading 3.56 ERA, which I don't know how, because he has a perfect 1-to-1 walk-to-strikeout ratio. Brad Keller has walked 24 hitters. He has struck out 24 hitters. That's bad, and that's really bad. I have zero idea how Brad Keller's ERA is that low, and something tells me that that is going to change. Brady Singer is 2-3 with an 8.49 ERA. And new fifth starter Ryan Yarbrough is 0-3 with a 6.35 ERA. That is 4 of your 5 starters with an ERA over 6. I got no sugarcoating for that. That's just bad. That's just doo-doo. And as I've said, all the problems are kind of the same. Like, Zach Greinke can't pitch away from Kauffman Stadium. If he's in Kauffman, Zach Greinke looks fine. He goes out on the road, and Zach turns into a pumpkin. Jordan Lyles had been consistent, and then he got absolutely shelled by the Minnesota Twins. Brad Keller is hanging on by a thread and doesn't know what a strike zone is. Brady Singer's command is all over the place to the tune he gave up 7 runs in an inning against Minnesota. And then Ryan Yarbrough is just bad in general. Like, I get that he sat here and gave you 4 innings of 1-run baseball in his first start of the year. You need something better out of your 5th starter, mainly in the term of innings. And the big thing is Ryan Yarbrough is scheduled to start tonight against Baltimore. And we'll get to that more coming up in the 2 o'clock hour of the show. Reinforcements, I truly do believe, are coming, but it's still going to be close to the end of the month until they get here. And that's where I wanted to go today, because the pitching being bad, to me, for some of these guys, that's who they are. Like, Ryan Yarbrough's never been great. He's just not. You get what you get from him, and you pray it's not terrible. Zach Greinke had issues pitching me from the K last season. Like, I don't get what these road woes are, but they are a feature. They are not a bug. They are who he is. And luckily, Zach Greinke's next start is at Kauffman Stadium tomorrow night. Jordan Lyles is bad. Like, I don't think the ERA will stay at 6. I think he'll rebound a bit from that, but he's just not good. And I mean, Brad Keller, we know about the command. That's been his issue all year. And then Brady Singer's the only one where I go, maybe it'll get better. But at the same time, he's had one good season and all the others were bad. As of right now, the odds would tell me that last year was the outlier, not this one. So I don't know. But even then, let's say Brady Singer can figure it out. That's still 4/5 of your rotation that just is not good by the fact of the players in it. And I know it feels disrespectful to say Zach Greinke and not good in the same sentence. But, I mean, at some point, y'all, we got to call a spade a spade. Zach Greinke, away from Kauffman Stadium, is not a good baseball player. And trust me, it pains me to say that. I love Zach. Zach gave me a lot of great memories for this Royals team before he was traded. And then when he's come back, it's been great as well. But the problem is away from Kauffman Stadium, he has not been good. Like, since last year, even. Like, last season, Zach Greinke's ERA at home, his ERA wasn't terrible. Like, his ERA at home last year, 1.91 in 12 starts. He was great. He was great at home. His road ERA last year was 5.32. Like, that is what it is. This year, home ERA, 3.63. That's good. Road ERA, 9.22. Like, that's fine to an extent to have this split, but not when that guy's supposed to front your rotation. So, I mean, you're going to get what you get there, but that's a problem. So then it comes down to what different bodies can you just put in there? And that's where I go that that reinforcements are coming. Ryan Yarbrough will not finish this month as the 5th starter. I promise you that. Because Daniel Lynch today begins his rehab assignment with AA Northwest Arkansas. That game has not started yet. That game will happen this evening for AA. So we will tomorrow I personally tomorrow will take a little bit of a look into how Daniel does in his first rehab start. But I assume by the end of this month, Daniel Lynch will be your 5th starter and Ryan Yarbrough is back to the pen. You still got other problems, though. And that's where I want to talk about how I really hope the Royals get a little aggressive and just give guys opportunities. Because there's 4 guys that I think by the end of the year in totality, all should have a couple of starts at the big league level if they continue on their current trajectories. Let's start with the guys that I think should be in the big leagues, honestly, by July. Like, by July, give them a chance. We're going to start with the guy I mentioned before in Austin Cox, who I said, as of now, I would give the 5th starter spot over Yarbrough. And then if he can't cut it, make Daniel Lynch take his spot. Austin Cox in 4 starts at AAA is 1-0 with a 2.21 ERA. Is it 4 starts in a small sample? Yes. Is he still pitching well, though? That's what's important. Drew Parrish in 4 starts at AAA. 1-0, a 1.71 ERA. Those 2 guys at AAA are performing well. And I get the Royals probably want to see a little bit more. And that's why I'm saying June or July. But I mean, they could potentially help this rotation because you need young guys. You need to see what young guys you have. And then I want to go to 2 guys in AA who they might not get a chance this year because they're in AA, but at least should get moved up. Anthony Venzano, who at one point kind of broke, like was really bad. And then he's refound it. Lefty, throws hard. Anthony Venzano is 3-1 with a 2.08 ERA in 5 starts at Northwest Arkansas. Alec Marsh, a guy I talked about last year as someone you could potentially bring up and be a new pitcher to this organization. He's 1-0 with a 3.32 ERA and 4 starts in AA. it's hard to deal with the bad right now. And Royals pitching is just bad. And I know, like, and the thing is, I can't give you some rosy reason of like why things will get better. Like, no, the problem is Royals pitching is still walking too many. They're regressed on the walks. That's why 15th is better than what they've been. So like you still take it, but they're having issues with command. And more importantly, these guys just don't have great stuff. Like Zach Greinke's doing the best he can. Zach Greinke's also having to throw majority 72-mile-an-hour curveballs. Like, he's trying, and he's being crafty, but that's not a recipe for big league success. Jordan Lyles has very hittable stuff. He tops out at like 92. I have said numerous times that Brad Keller, he just is walking everyone in existence. Brady Singer can't seem to find the right command and is over the middle of the plate too much a lot of these times and is getting hit too hard. And then Ryan Yarbrough is just bad because he can only throw like 85. There's no, and normally, I'm the one who comes onto this program and gives you all the reasons of why, oh, look at these underlying numbers. It's not as bad as you think, yada, yada, yada. I'm sorry, gang. I don't have that for the Royals starting rotation. I don't. I wish I could. I wish I had magical numbers to give you to be able to tell you, no, the pitching will get better. If this is your assortment of 5, unless these guys write a little bit to their normal mid-career numbers, it's going to be this bad for a little bit. And I unfortunately do not know if they can correct some of these things. I do think Jordan Lyles will not have more starts like he had against Minnesota. I think that's an outlier start. Because until then, Jordan Lyles has gone consistently 6 innings, 4 runs. That's just what he's done. And you take those. You take that. But Zach Greinke, he gets a home start. So in theory, he should pitch well against Baltimore tomorrow. And that would be great. That would right the ship. Can Ryan Yarbrough spin you 5 innings of 3-run baseball tonight? If he can, great. And that's where the other side of this that I think is the quicker path to the Royals not losing so many games, to me, is not really heavily on the pitching. The pitching's trying, but they're not ever going to be great with this current collection, at least in the starting rotation. The offense has got to pick it up. And I know we've said that a lot, and that's something we can take a deeper dive into. But the positive sign I will give you, because that's what I'm always about when it comes to the Royals, they have reinforcements coming. When they come, I do not know. But there are guys who, if you're like, if you watch, Ryan Yarbrough make a start and you get frustrated and go, why are we throwing him out there? I can give you comfort in that he will not be out there starting by the end of this month. Daniel Lynch will be starting in his spot, barring setbacks with his rehab. He will be back by the end of the month. If you're watching Brad Keller walk every second batter and are getting tired of seeing it, at some point I'd have to imagine either Austin Cox or Drew Parrish will take his spot. The only 2 guys that I can promise you are going to be starting every game barring injury are Zach Greinke and Jordan Lyles. And that's fine. Like, Zach at home is a good pitcher. On the road, you just work with it. And Jordan Lyles is He's not going to get shelled like he did against Minnesota as often, but he's also not going to be elite either. There's a middle ground to be found. But Keller, Singer, and Yarbrough, that's where I think we might see the most room for. Other guys might get chances. And I just want to point out that it's bad right now, but there are good things coming up the pipe, which is frustrating to hear. And I get it. We're all so tired of development and things are coming and all that. I get it. But I think there are guys to get it better. And then the other side fact is they can only do so much with the offense being this bad. At some point, as the pitching tries to stabilize itself, this offense has got to pick it up. They are in one collective sophomore slump. And I think they'll break out of it. I do. And this isn't about hard hit rate or expected batting averages or expected sluggings. It's not about any of those numbers that I personally have thrown at you. It's about these guys are too good to be this bad for this long. Jake and I were discussing yesterday about, the Royals and the A's, and Jake asked me, how can I be so confident that the Royals should take 2 of 3 from Oakland when they're only separated by 1 game after a month of baseball? Is because you look at those 2 teams and one of them cannot possibly be this bad this long based on the talent of the individuals. I hope that starts tonight against Baltimore, and we will preview that game coming up later on in the show. But the pitching, at worst, there's reinforcements coming by the end of this month and going into June. It will get better because guys that could actually maybe be better will be playing baseball. Dan Lynch might come up and he might be bad. He might have a 5 ERA again. I don't know. But it's better than watching Ryan Yarbrough check out his crap every day. So I don't know. I wish I had something more rosy to tell you. But what I can tell you is there's pitching reinforcements coming. I think there's some better guys they'll start playing over these worse guys that are playing right now. And the other part is simply they need help from their offense. And hopefully that can come sooner rather than later. Take a time out here on Mike Depp. Coming up next, thanks for Everyone Loves the List with Dan Lucero. Time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up. And with that, I bring in my good man, Dan Lucero, to assist me with the list today. Dan, how we doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing pretty good, man. Our list today, in honor of the Negro Leagues Museum, announcing they're building a new 30,000 square foot facility. Our favorite exhibits from the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum.
I will start with number 4, and that would be the uniform displays. I think those are
those are very cool. Number 4 for me, I like that little infield of statues they have when you come around the corner. That's only 4 for me because I think some of the cool stuff, but you walk through, you get all the different people at different positions. It's fantastic.
Number 3 for me, I enjoy also the signed baseballs. They got the big row of the signed baseballs. It's a collection that's ever expanding, and certainly there's more room to expand it in the new building. So that's always cool to see as well, the signatures.
That's number 3 for me as well. That gigantic running wall length case of signed baseballs is just fantastic. When I went, I just took so much time just poring over what auto signatures I could find in that case. It was just overly fantastic.
Number 2 for me is the Field of Dreams, Field of Legends, whatever it is that they call it. It's just it's awe-inspiring when you first walk in and you see those immortals of the game in their positions, like they're ready to play, captured in a frozen moment in time on the diamond. And what a great way to be introduced to the museum. And your reward at the end is to get to be up close and personal with them. You have to travel to go around.
You go all the way around
to get to the field, and that's really neat the way they have it laid out. So that's number 2 for me.
That is very nice. Number 2 for me, Buck O'Neil gets his own little corner, and I really like that. The entire big Buck O'Neil display case right over there, got all the stuff from Buck and just his entire gigantic wall of display. I spent so much time just looking at every inch of everything in that Buck O'Neil space.
So number 1 for me, I don't know if this counts as an exhibit. Maybe it doesn't. But Bob Kendrick is the number 1 thing.
I'll allow it. I will allow it.
He is an absolute treasure. And Kansas City and the Negro League Museum and baseball, the game, is lucky to have him.
That's number 1. I wish I had thought of making that my number 1 because Bob deserves it. Number for me is the jersey with basically the Negro League's Hall of Fame that they have. I spent so much time just wandering through that area. It was great and fantastic, but definitely a shout out. Bob Kendrick, also probably the best thing about the Negro League's Baseball Museum. Dan, thanks for joining for the list. Hope you stick around some CrossTalk.
I will.
Well. We'll take a segment. Coming back next, we'll have Dan join me for CrossTalk. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW, and I already bring back in good man Dan Lucero of 580 Sports Talk. Help me with the list today. Now, Dan,
I've been on this show more than I've been on my own show the last last 4 or 5 days of showtime.
Man, I think that's actually very correct. You've been on now 3 different episodes of Mic'd Up, I guess to call them episodes, editions. And only one of 580 Sports Talk as of this moment. You'll be on 580 Sports Talk later today, obviously.
Right. Don't let me get too comfortable. I'm gonna get squatters right.
I'll let you and Jake fight over who gets that chair and who gets to always be in that spot. Dan, thank you for joining me as always. And where I want to start is because I have to, because we've having too much fun talking about this. We don't talk a lot of NBA on this show. Mm-hmm. We don't. First things first, congrats to your Denver Nuggets. We're now up 2-0 in their series against the Phoenix Suns.
Thank you.
That was an enjoyable game last night for them to battle back to. And now you get the very weird 3 days off until the next game is played.
Yeah, 3 days off. Not thrilled about that. They bring in some faith healers for Chris Paul's groin for Phoenix. But I'm not sure how much that matters. I think 2-0 lead, as well as Denver's playing, that could be I'm not going to say it. I don't want to say it out loud. It feels good. It feels good, but I don't want to say it out loud. It all kind of feels still like the impossible dream, and I am afraid to jinx it.
I have been there myself with certain teams I've had where you don't want to say it because you can see something happening, but you don't want to say it as well. What I do want to get to, and for our listeners out there, I hope any of you have been following this a little bit. Dylan Brooks of the Memphis Grizzlies was becoming well known for all of his trash talking in the midst of his terrible play. Well, today, the Memphis Grizzlies reported that Dylan Brooks has been informed, since he's a pending free agent, he will not be back with the team under, quote, any circumstances, to which Dan, myself, and quite literally the entire internet have been having a field day with. And I want us to get to here, Dan. How bad of a player do you have to be, or bad of an influence do you have to be, for a team to out and out say, under no circumstances are we bringing you back?
Yeah, under no circumstances is pretty incredible. Like, no, zero,
not one,
no circumstances. Like, I don't know, team bus crash. Like, I don't know, the rapture. Like, there's no
gigantic flood takes out the earth.
Yeah,
like,
if
not one.
If he was the last basketball player on earth, like, I no circumstance. That is pretty wild. I've almost come around on it feeling like, man, they didn't really have to do him like that. But if anybody's ever brought that on himself, I mean,
Dylan Brooks.
Dylan Brooks wrote a lot of checks with his mouth that he was incapable of cashing on the floor. And what little we have talked about the NBA, we have a little segment on 5A Sports Talk called the Playoff Roundup in our headline segment at 5 o'clock, where we just kind of sprint through the NHL and the NBA, because obviously it's a big deal. It's playoffs, yeah. And we talk about like the headlines that come out of that. And the thing that is very apparent about the Memphis Grizzlies, and was throughout the season, and all of Ja Morant's off-the-court difficulties, and some of his alleged and also visible misbehaviors, is that there is a distinct lack of adults in the room, in that Memphis locker room. And if you are not an adult in the room, but you are an all-NBA caliber player who is the face of his own shoe company, or not his own shoe company, but has his own like shoe deal, and you have that kind of talent and that kind of youth, then you can be a little patient with the maturity process for a player like that. If you are a 30% three-point shooter and you don't bring anything to the table on offense, and people don't like you, then there's a little less patience. It's the tolerance has as much to do with his personality as it does his play. But nope. As the meme goes, the Adam Silver meme, Dylan Brooks better learn Chinese, buddy. Dan, he's going to be a Guangdong Tiger before you know it. Ni hao.
I have to just inform everybody here. First off, Dan tweeted out that meme earlier today, and I was my behind inside baseball here. My cubicle space is right next to Dan's, and so Dan tweets that out. To which I just turn to Dan and go, "I have never seen that meme a day in my life," which killed me.
Man,
and then
you're not as online as me, I guess.
I'm not listen, when it comes to being, I'm online about certain things. You and Brendan got me beat for a good chunk of things. You truly do.
Brendan and I both probably a little too online. I shouldn't speak for him. I can only speak for myself. I am too online.
I'm willing to speak for Brendan. He's probably a little bit too online, and I think he knows that and is fine with it. And then we all proceeded to look at the Shaquille O'Neal, Guangdong Tigers, Ni hao video.
One of the great moments in the history of live television.
If none of you have seen it, if you're watching this live stream, which you can watch us right now on youtube.com, Sports on 5's YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't. We'd appreciate it. If you're on youtube.com right now, you could simply look up the Shaquille O'Neal Guangdong Tigers inside the NBA segment.
Yeah, Shaq and Charles Barkley playing who he played for on inside the NBA.
What was it? Aaron Brooks?
It was Aaron Brooks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron Brooks was a Guangdong Tiger.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely hilarious. I had to get that out of the way because I will not stop laughing about that all of today, and we'll talk about it all I truly desire. Going into specific parts about the teams we follow here in the northeast part of the state, Dan, Kansas City Chiefs draft class finalized. They got their 7 players. Intriguing if they got to 7 exactly and 1 pick from all 7 rounds. They kind of worked out that way. Now that the full class is complete, we've had some time to digest it a little bit. What do you make of this Chiefs 2023 draft class?
I think, and we spoke about this on 5A Sports Talk yesterday, but for me, this was a draft where the Chiefs felt like they could focus on ceiling rather than instant contribution, ability to start, ability to play a bunch of snaps right away. And that's not to say that these guys won't. Let me be clear. But they got some players in their first 3 picks with Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Rashee Rice, and Wanya Morris, who have tremendous athletic tools, and might take a little bit of molding to get to a level where Rashee Rice is a starting outside receiver, or where Wanya Morris is a starting right tackle in the league, or where Felix Anudike-Uzomah is a 3-down defensive end in this league. They aren't those things yet. Now, Wanya Morris is going to compete for that job, and Rashee Rice is going to see some snaps, and you're damn sure Felix Anudike-Uzomah is going to see some snaps. But the Chiefs looked at this and said, we feel really good about our first 22. We feel like even if there's some risk with these first 3 picks at these positions of need, there's also so much upside. And we trust our culture, and we trust our coaching, and we trust our player development enough that we can take guys with that higher ceiling, and we feel like we can bring them along and that they can be the best versions of themselves in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform. That's the kind of draft you can afford to have when you're as talent rich and coming off a Super Bowl championship like the Chiefs are.
I'm with you, and that's kind of how I envisioned this draft, because I love the show today with the idea of, what should our expectations be in year one for these guys. And with every single one of them, if they become big contributors and have good counting stats, that's great. But their all baseline should be, can they just perform, stay on the roster, and be there coming up in year two? You might get 2 starters out of this group with Felix Anudike-Uzomah in year one, and then maybe Wanya Morris earns the right tackle job in year one. But outside of that, just probably a lot of role players and other things like that. Sticking with the Chiefs here, there's been some a pair of running back news made today about the Chiefs. They officially declined Clyde Edwards-Helaire's 5th-year option, or at least they will officially decline the 5th-year option of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which is going to be about $5.5 million for a guy who's at best going to be your second-string running back. I can understand that move. And then this report about 20 minutes ago from Field Yates, Jerick McKinnon back with the Kansas City Chiefs. Looking at the running back room with, I'm assuming you're not surprised that Clyde's 5th-year option got declined. I mean, we all kind of knew that was going to happen. And Jerick McKinnon back in the room, I kind of like this makes more sense now that the Chiefs didn't draft a running back with the way the room is shaping out right now.
They're pretty settled with their first 3. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you take the part about him being a first-round draft pick out of the equation, if you just pretended he had been a 4th or a 5th round pick instead, you would look at his production and you would look at what he's been able to give when he hasn't been hurt and say, yeah, that's a fine RB2 or RB3. Like, that's fine. We can deal with that. It's the fact that he was a 1st-round pick that makes it all kind of feel disappointing that he hasn't lived up to those expectations. Jerick McKinnon, absolute perfect fit for the Chiefs. What they do, he gives them he gives them a lot of valuable things. Pass catching, pass protection that you love in a rotational running back. And then Isaiah Pacheco sees the day as the starting running back last year. He'll be RB1 going into next year. Don't count out the undrafted free agent Deneric Prince out of Tulsa, who had the highest speed score of any running back in the draft class. For comparison's sake, that's higher than Bijan Robinson. That's higher than Jahmyr Gibbs. That's higher than any other running back who was drafted. And also for comparison's sake, last year, the running back in the 2023 class or 2022 class that had the highest speed score was Isaiah Pacheco. The Chiefs identified him, took him in the 7th round, and you see what happened there. So, again, you don't want to get over your skis about the UDFAs, right? Like, you can get, I think people can get too excited about those guys. Like, there's a reason they weren't necessarily drafted. At the same time, Chiefs have been able to spin straw into gold in the late rounds of the draft before. And last year, the flyer they took on a speedy running back late in the draft with some power hit big for them. Maybe this one hits big too. Just remember the name Deneric Prince as camp rolls along. He right now is probably 4th on the running back depth chart. Could he supplant Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the roster? I don't think that's crazy to consider that as a possibility.
I will be fascinated to watch Deneric Prince and how this kind of entire saga goes in a way. Because I think you make a good point. The Chiefs now have kind of in back-to-back drafts been like, wow, there's a really fast running back with some power. Why not? Let's just see what happens. And it did work really well one time. It could work really well again. Because of where we are and because I'm leading this show today, we have to talk about the Kansas City Royals.
Do we have to?
I'm going to make you talk about them a little bit here.
All right. We can do that. I like talking baseball with you, Fulton.
Exactly.
You're a baseball guy, and I appreciate being able to talk baseball with fellow Seamheads. So let's talk about the woebegone Kansas City Royals.
Just a very, very bad baseball team, if we can call them that. Looking at this pitching rotation, the way I normally try to look at the faults within this team and try to point out the ways that it can get better and maybe why things are faltering. The more I look at this pitching rotation and the fact that they as a rotation are 25th in MLB and ERA right now, I think we have to come to just a conclusion many maybe others have already come to.
That Cal Eldred is still somewhere, that the Cal Eldred virus has seeped into the walls of the clubhouse at Kauffman Stadium, and they just need to like when you get mold in your house,
mold.
You have to fumigate the clubhouse properly. You mean something else? Is it something else?
It's something else. I haven't had that thought, but right. I mean, that's a good thought to have. I hate saying, I think it might just be a thing of pure talent with this rotation at this point. Because looking at it, Zach Greinke is a Hall of Famer. The fact of the matter is, his past 2 years on the road, his ERA is over 7. At home, it's about 3.6. On the road, it's over 7. That's a feature. That's not a bug anymore. That is, for some reason, away from Kauffman Stadium, Zach Greinke's just a bad player. Whatever it is a problem right now. Jordan Lyles, we've discussed it. He's not great. He is what he is. Is he going to always get shelled the way he got shelled against Minnesota? Probably not. But he is what he is. Brad Keller somehow has a 1-to-1 walk-to-strikeout ratio. Yeah, he has somehow done that.
That's the big problem for Brad Keller. Everything else looks good. He's got an ERA that you don't flinch at, and he's keeping the ball in the yard. One home run in his 30 in the third innings, which nobody else on the staff is really doing.
No,
just gotta be in the strike zone a little more often. I actually feel relative to the other guys, feel a little bit better about Keller. Lyles and Greinke, the issue is that Zach Greinke's 39 years old, doesn't throw the ball hard anymore.
No.
And Jordan Lyles never did throw the ball real hard. Yeah. And sometimes if you're not throwing hard, you don't have premium breaking stuff, and Jordan Lyles never really had that either. When it's going bad, this is what it looks like.
Yeah. I'm with you. And then I look to the other two parts of the rotation right now. Brady Singer, I have no idea what's wrong. It feels like an inability to kind of command his stuff right now, which is leading into just kind of leaking and being in a lot of spots. And then Ryan Yarbrough is just a bad baseball player. Call that spade truly what it is. Ryan Yarbrough ain't great. Ryan
Yarbrough is overextended as a starting pitcher, and hopefully when Daniel Lynch is able to make it back, he won't be a starting pitcher, but obviously it's a role that he's not really suited for at this point. As far as Brady Singer goes, I don't want to give away too much of what we're going to talk about on 580 Sports Talk today.
We do love a good tease.
We are going to talk about 3 Royals youngsters, or at least guys who we look at as tent poles for the foundation of whatever this is going to look like when this turns around for the better in Kansas City. And 3 guys are not off to great starts. So we're going to talk about, okay, is there something to be alarmed about here, or is it too early to panic? Or where are we at DEFCON 1? Where are we at? As far as Brady Singer goes, again, without spoiling too much of my own program, his slider and his sinker are just not real good pitches right now. His slider has still gotten some swings and misses. I mean, if you watched on, was it Sunday he pitched, or was that Saturday?
I believe he pitched Sunday.
Okay, I think it was Sunday. I think you're right. He getting some strikeouts. He was getting some swings and misses. When he got ahead, he putting some guys away with that slider, but guys jumping on him early in the count. Right now, the fastball is not a good pitch. The fastball, the sinker, it's not sinking. It's staying in a very hittable place. And that, I mean, you look at his baseball savant numbers, he is allowing the loudest contact right now. Brendan would say he's Mr. Clanky from Backyard Baseball. He's just up there throwing batting practice. And that's obviously got to turn because, I don't know if you blame the WBC for it or what, but that's a guy you thought was going to maybe be fronting your rotation, and he's got an ERA in the mid-8s, and that is not what you want.
No, it truly isn't. Reinforcements, I think, are the biggest thing when it comes to the Royals pitching rotation. Daniel Lynch begins a rehab assignment tonight. He'll pitch for AA Northwest Arkansas. They got some other young guys, so we'll see what happens there. The Royals begin a 10-game homestand tonight. They have 3 against the Orioles, 3 against the A's, 4 against the White Sox. I'm going to get into this more coming up in the next hour about what I think would deem this homestand a success. But do you feel that this should be a homestand to where there are wins to be had? Like, yes, this is a 7-win baseball team, and so therefore you could look at it as, should you ever really expect them to win anything? But given the teams they're facing, the Orioles, a good team, 19-9, second in the AL East, a pretty good team. But then the Athletics, who are a Ponzi scheme, and the White Sox, who are barely existing as a baseball team. Should this be a homestand where you do expect some wins out of this team?
I don't know if you can expect it, but I hope in that clubhouse they feel like this is an opportunity to get right. I mean, they're no digging their way out of the hole that they've dug in one 10-game span, but a chance to win some games, get some good vibes back in that clubhouse, I think would be welcomed. And certainly when you're playing the A's, who that pitching staff is maybe the worst I've ever seen, and I am a Colorado Rockies fan. They're a mess on the mound. And then the White Sox, they got Tim Anderson back off the injured list today, so they'll be better by the time they roll into KC. But yeah, that's a struggling team, and their pitching is not real good either. So what I'm saying is, I don't know if they're going to win a lot of games, but I'm saying you can bet some overs. And
basically, if the offense can't get right under this assortment of pitching they're about, against the Orioles, it might be still a little tough.
That's what
if you can't get right against the A's or White Sox offensively.
That's what you want to see. You want to see a good homestand for MJ. Bobby Witt's been slumping a little bit. Get him back going. Maybe this gets Salvi going. Obviously, Eddie O's been swinging a pretty good bat. Vinny stays hot. You just need some production. You need some good vibes back in that clubhouse. You feel good about going to the ballpark every day. And you got a chance. You win both of those series, turn in a winning 10-game homestand after winning one home game in April. Yeah, that would change the vibes up in a way that I think is sorely needed.
As the kids say, the vibes would definitely start becoming immaculate. For let's go, Dan, speaking of vibes, I have to get your opinion on this. Where do you stand on the Royals Gladiator helmet as their home run celebration?
I didn't even know they had a home run celebration because they hit so few home runs.
Brendan made that same comment to me too, and it's both rude but accurate.
It's brand new information to me, but you know what? It's fun, and baseball's supposed to be fun. So I am all for fun things, and I hope we get to see it more often. Hey, breaking Royals news. Can I break some Royals news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Freddie Fermin recalled from Omaha. You already spoke about Michael Garcia coming up. Freddie Fermin also has been recalled. Franmil Reyes option down.
Oh, he isn't hitting.
Well, that tells me that maybe there's an issue with a catcher injury. Either Sal or MJ is not quite ready to catch.
Probably not. Oh, that's also probably definitely true. But man, Freddie Fermin back, Franmil Reyes being optioned. That is interesting. Look at you, Dan. Breaking news on my show.
Breaking news on your show.
I appreciate that.
Squatter's right.
Dan, thanks for joining me, man.
You bet.
Well, that's it. That would be it for the 1 o'clock hour. 2 o'clock hour. More Royals news coming up next. into the final hour of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster with you riding solo. I appreciate every single one of you who has been joining me this afternoon for the ride. It's a one-day dictatorship. Jake will be back tomorrow, so I'm so sorry that my totalitarian rule ends after just one day. But eventually we'll be back yet again, I have to assume. I don't know. That's how Jake and I work. Sometimes we need days off, and sometimes we have other stuff going on. We fill in. It works. But it's time for the final hour of my demo. I want to thank Dane Lucero, 580 Sports Talk, joining me for so much of last hour with Everyone Loves the List and CrossTalk. Our Everyone Loves the List today was our favorite exhibits of the New Orleans Baseball Museum. If you have been to the museum and you have your favorite exhibits for the museum, please let us know on the text line 785-272-9429 or on the comment section of our YouTube live stream. Go to youtube.com. Sports on 580 is our YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. And you can jump in and let us know your thoughts as well. Coming up in the 2 o'clock hour of Mic'd Up, we're going to look at the Royals homestand coming up. What constitutes a good homestand? I have my own opinion on it. It is probably very different from Jake's, but Jake's not here today, so I can give off my entire opinion about the homestand without Jake letting me know what his thoughts are. What constitutes good homestand? We're going to also preview the matchup between the Royals and the Orioles coming up tonight, including we have a lineup, and I'll get you to the lineup here in a minute because I really, really, really like it, including the roster moves as well. Gigi Piccolo also spoke on Sports Talk Radio in Kansas City earlier today. I'll look at some of the comments he made and just some overall thoughts on JJ Piccolo's, what he said earlier today and some of the quotes he came through. Then we're going to look at the Chiefs rookies and what our expectations should be for them coming up in the first year. Like I said, you can join me on the text line 785-272-9429, or of course you can give us a shout on our Fleming Place Wine and Spirits phone line 785-272-9429. But Dan broke the news as we ended CrossTalk, and I will re-hit the news. The Royals have made a pair of roster moves today. Going down, Nicky Lopez has been placed on the 10-day injured list with appendicitis. Hope Nicky is doing okay. I assume he'll have an appendectomy soon. That's usually what happens with appendicitis. We will see what happens with Nicky. Hope he is okay and makes a good recovery. And then Franmil Reyes has been optioned to AAA Omaha. He has been sent down. And in corresponding moves, catcher Freddie Fermin has been recalled from AAA Omaha. And in the news, it's made me the most happy. Michael Garcia has been called up from AAA Omaha. The Royals' number 3 prospect, according to MLB Pipeline, has been called up to the big league roster and will be playing tonight. Because, folks, we have a lineup, and it's a lineup that I really like. Leading off and playing shortstop will be Bobby Witt Jr. Your designated hitter batting second is Vinny Pasquantino. Salvador Perez, the catcher, will bat third. MJ Melendez in right field will bat third. Edward Olivares will be in left field. He will bat fifth. Nick Prado, the first baseman, will bat sixth. Michael Massey at second will bat seventh. Michael Garcia will make his 2023 debut playing third base, and he will bat eighth. And Kyle Isbell in center will bat ninth, all in support of Ryan Yarbrough. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself and let myself be a prisoner of the moment. This is an interesting lineup for the Royals. They have, and I'm going to kind of count it up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 members of this lineup are what you could call youngsters. With Bobby, Vinny, MJ, Edward Olivares, Nick Prado, Massey, Garcia, and Isbell. This is a lineup of young guns. Your one veteran in this lineup is Salvador Perez. That's it. No Hunter Dozier, no Jackie Bradley Jr., none of that. It's the young bucks. That's what it was. I am intrigued by this decision and by the Royals' willingness to put this kind of a lineup together this early. And more importantly, I say this, and I'm being dead serious. It feels different that the Royals were willing to option Franmil Reyes. And here's why. One, and I agree with my man Chris here on the YouTube comments. I'm also, Chris, mildly surprised that Franmil had option years left. I honestly didn't know that, but I'll take it. Because it's telling me the Royals are willing to, in certain situations, send struggling bats down, even if you're a veteran. Like, Franmil Reyes was brought to this team to be a power hitter and to give them home runs and give them a thump in the lineup. And it hasn't worked. Franmil Reyes is batting 186 right now. His OPS plus is 45. Only one person has a worse OPS plus than Franmil. Two people, I'm sorry, have worse OPS plus than Franmil Reyes. They are Hunter Dozier at 23 and Michael Massey at -1. And I'm not going to get a Michael Massey discourse today. I don't have the time to deal with it. But the fact of the matter is, the Royals, with a player, are willing to say, this isn't working right now. We need to get young guys an opportunity, and trying to make a situation to where they can get the job done. And the Royals are saying, Franmil Reyes does not give us the best chance to win, so we're going to make a move. Michael Garcia being up is definitely, I don't know if Michael would be up if Nicky Lopez was not going on the injured list. I don't know what the move would be outside of that, but it's nice to see him being up and seeing Freddie Fermin get another opportunity as well. His stint was not great. He played 3 games so far this year. He's had 7 at-bats. He's 1 for 7. Has a pair of strikeouts as well. It's not been great. I can't, deny that. We'll have to see how much going forward, but the Royals' willingness to send a struggling hitter down is important. And I know, and I'm going to get out ahead of this. I get that saying the Royals are willing to send a struggling hitter down while Hunter Dozier remains on this baseball team seems conflicting. I've said it once, I'll say it again. The Hunter Dozier thing is J.J. Piccolo and John Sherman are trying to do something. It's not working. I think they should, set sail on that by now. But if they want it to be June, if they want it to be, X amount of plate appearances, that's whatever. At this point, it's whatever. I will remind you that Hunter Dozier has basically stopped playing, period, though. Like, we can complain about him when he's in the lineup. Matt Contreras basically benched him. Like, not even, he's been benched. He plays every once in a while. I think if Hunter Dozier is going to take up a roster spot, which is frustrating, at least he's not sucking down the team with his poor play at the plate or in the field. And I think the fact that we were able to move on, and like, they're not fully moved on from Franmil Reyes. Like, Franmil might be back. Like, let's say Franmil Reyes hits well at AAA. He might be back this year. That is what it is. But the fact of the matter is, the Royals are willing to say, this guy is not playing well. This guy's not giving us a best chance to win. Let's try something new with a younger player. And that, to me, is a true sign this organization might truly be moving in a different way. I like it. It makes me happy. It delights me. We'll have to see what it is going forward. But I love it. I love this Royals lineup. I think it's going to be a fun one, mainly because, and we've had some people do the investigation for me. Again, Chris, I appreciate the investigation work. Errol Ayers only has 528 career plate appearances. There are 3 players in this lineup with over 600 career plate appearances. 3. And I know Sal has one. So Sal obviously has more than 600. I'm now curious by how many plate appearances some of these guys have. Chris, if you already have the information, I would take you already doing that. But Bobby and MJ, I didn't realize they crossed the 600 plate. Chris, I have to just shout out Chris and all the other great people. Vance, fantastic joke, even though it made me cry a little bit inside as well, of the Royals being a choking hazard because they are bad. Bobby Witt Jr., MJ Melendez, and Salvador Perez are the only ones. It's very interesting. It's very intriguing. But I love it. I love that these players are getting opportunities. The young guys are getting a chance. To circle all the way back around here after that, kind of long tangent to start. Jake has brought up a bunch that there's a May 11th deadline for this team for him to care. I'll be brutally honest, and I can be brutally honest without Jake here because I can kind of do what I want. I'm going to be kind of looking forward to when Jake stops caring about wins and losses, because then maybe I can get him to see about the development on this team. It'll be nice. The fact of the matter is, May 11th, Jake will stop caring about wins and losses because the Royals will not be at a proper enough record or stretch to where Jake thinks they matter. But more importantly for me, this 10-game homestand, I think, really signifies what could be a turning point for this Royals team. And Dan and I talked about it a little bit on CrossTalk. The Royals have 3 games against the Orioles, 3 games against the Athletics, and then 3 games against the White Sox coming up in this 10-game homestand. Now, the Orioles are a good team. They are 19-9. Their pitching staff is pitching a lot better than I would have expected. And more importantly, they have some really, really good offensive contributors at their 19-9 record with the way they've been playing. You know, you got Adley Rutschman playing like a man possessed because he's so good. Adley Rutschman is so good. I could go on for forever about Adley Rutschman. But I mean, you got Adley Rutschman playing well. Ryan Mountcastle is playing well for them. Jorge Mateo is batting like a house of fire right now. And then Austin Hayes is playing well. Like, offensively, they got that going for them. And then their pitching rotation, for the most part, has been overall quite well. I mean, Kyle Gibson, who the Royals will see in this series, has been pitching well. Same thing with Tyler Wells. And then they will also see rookie Grayson Rodriguez this series as well, who's been pitching decently well to start his big league career. So the Orioles are an intriguing one to start. But then they get 3 against the Athletics, and they get 3 against the Athletics and 3 against the White Sox. I'm very interested to see how they do against the Athletics and how they do against the White Sox. Because for me, this season has never been about the raw win-loss total. I've said that I don't know how much. It is more to me about how they get to those wins and losses than what they are. And to make it clear, and I want to make this abundantly clear, I don't like it when they lose. Losing sucks. Losing is brutal. Losing is stupid. I hope they stop losing. It is painful. 7-22 is a horrible place to be in right now. But I think what should be considered a success over this homestand is 5-5. And I know 500 baseball over a 10-game stretch often does not inspire a lot of goodwill and idea of like, oh my goodness, this team's on an upswing. But I think 5-5 should be what we hope for out of this stretch because, one, the Royals have 1 home win all year. They're 1-12 at home. Getting 5 on a single homestand would be huge. 2, the Royals haven't played anything close to 500 baseball over any stretch so far this season. And 3, it would show that there is an upward trajectory for this team against lower level competition, which is where they should be. They should be able to beat bad teams. If they are what we would like them to be, which is an ability to contend in the near future, they have to, at least as of now, beat bad teams. And the Athletics and the White Sox are bad teams. The way I break down this series is if they can get 1 game from Baltimore, 2 games from Oakland, and 2 games from Chicago, which would be losing the series to the Orioles, winning the series from the A's, and splitting the series with the White Sox. You get to 5-5. And I personally think that that should be where we draw that there could be a corner being turned. The bigger thing is, how does the offense look over this homestand? Because like Dan and I mentioned, they're facing some bad pitching over this homestand. They'll get a really good one tonight in Tyler Wells for the Orioles. It'd be Tyler Wells for the Orioles against Ryan Yarbrough for the White Sox. Ryan Yarbrough for the Royals. Wells has a 2.79 ERA, and more importantly, he leads the major leagues in WHIP, or walks plus hits per inning pitched, at .729. He doesn't allow base runners. Just doesn't do it. Doesn't really walk anyone. Tyler Wells in 29 innings has walked 3. That's not fun. And will be a tough matchup for this young lineup tonight. But even so, can you find ways to still be competitive in all 3 games against Baltimore? I think that's the key for the Baltimore series is find one you can win, but then as well be competitive in all three. But if this team can be 5-5 when this homestand ends, if they can go 5-5 over this 10-game stretch, I think that and how we get there is important. Like I talked about, the raw win-loss, I don't think is what anyone should focus on. How you get there is what matters. But if through this homestand, Michael Garcia plays well, and Bobbitt Jr. finds his swing, MJ Melendez gets it going, and Vinny keeps doing what Vinny does, that's a good sign for the rest of this season. That's a good sign for this team going forward. So what I implore out of all of you, the best I can, is with this homestand and with this series between the Royals and the Orioles coming up this evening, don't get so fixed. Like, if they lose 2 of 3 to Baltimore, do not be upset, I guess, is the biggest thing that everyone needs, that I would like, for people to make sure they're understanding, is don't be upset if the Royals lose. Well, okay. You can be upset if the Royals lose 2 of 3 because losing sucks. Do not be surprised. Do not think that they have squandered something. Now, if they have leads in all 3 games in the 8th and they blow 2 of those 3 leads, yeah, you can be upset. They squandered a chance to get a sweep out of a team they shouldn't really have swept. But overall, just being competitive against Baltimore is key. And then when they take on Oakland this weekend, they should win 2 of 3 at minimum. And I know Jake and I were kind of conflicting about that yesterday because, Jake's point was the Royals have 1 more win. How can you say confidently they should win 2 of 3? Fact of the matter is, Oakland does not put a real baseball team on the field. The Royals at least put baseball players on the field. They're underperforming baseball players, but they're baseball players on the field. The Oakland Athletics do not do that. They straight up don't do that. And that's why I can say confidently the Royals should take 2 of 3 from Oakland. And then the White Sox, they're not playing well at all. You should be able to, against their poor pitching staff, split 2 of 2. You will probably have to face Dylan Cease. I have not seen what that lineup, schedule will turn up into, but I imagine you get Dylan Cease. That'll suck. That one will hurt. That one will be a pain. But can you be competitive in the other 3 and take the other 2? I think you can. And that's where I talk about what we should look at as a successful homestand. If they can play 500 ball, I will implore you, if they play 500 ball, do not be like Jake and just stop, turn on the apathy meter because they're, they didn't go like 12 and, I think what that said, like one of them 10 and 12 or 11 and 11 over that 22 game stretch. I ask you not to turn off because if they can perform well now, they do still need to earn your viewership. I'm not going to tell any of you just to watch them because you just should. Do what you enjoy. But them starting a positive trend with this homestand could set them up to actually start winning a lot more games as we go. The odds of the Royals having a 7-22 month again are slim. That month was brutal. Incredibly so. But the odds of that happening again are legitimately low. Because this is going to be an easier month for this team. We talked about how brutal that first month was and how they kept playing good teams and were facing aces on different staffs and everything like that. They are facing not great baseball teams this month. There are still some good ones that they will have to play. It is not a group of bad ones. It's not like every series is a bad team, but there are a lot more winnable series. You play the Orioles, going to be a tough series. The Athletics, winnable series. The White Sox, winnable series. You go to the Brewers and you go to the Padres. Those won't be fun. Those are 2 pretty good teams. But then you end this month with the White Sox, the Tigers, the Nationals, and the Cardinals. They can win games this month. And if they don't, we can go right back to where we are about being upset at the losing and questioning how things are going and all that. The fact of the matter is, the Royals, by my count, play 9 games against good teams this month. With the Orioles, the Brewers, and the Padres. Every other series, they're not playing a good team. The Athletics are bad. The White Sox are bad. The Tigers are horrible. The Nationals are horrible. And those Cardinals are stinky right now. Now, the Cardinals you face at the end of the month, so maybe they turn something on here in May. And my opinion on them is different when that series comes around at the end of the month. But it's not good. Like, the Royals have a chance this month. And so that's where, I implore to a certain level of try to stave off any apathy for one more month because they could get some wins this month. I haven't really sat and figured out what I would call a successful month for this team. But if they could start it off by going 5-5 to kick off the month of May, I would not be surprised if they rattle off some wins this month. And it's not like they're going to do something crazy and all of a sudden get close to being at actually 500. That is not like they're too deep in the hole. But is this a team that could use this month to springboard an opportunity to be a 74-win ball club? I think they could. One bad month out of 6 does not make your season. And I think this homestand is a good opportunity to start where the Royals could actually, because I think all they need is, to use a weird analogy here, not really weird, but a different sport analogy here. It's like a basketball player needs to see the ball go through the hoop. They're struggling from the field and they go to the free throw line and they get a couple of free throws to drop. And you just need to see the ball go through the hoop. The Royals just need to see wins on the board. And I think that will help them. I think if they can start stringing some wins together and winning some ball games here against some lower level competition, that will help them out the rest of this month alone, but then going into the subsequent months because they've seen that they can win. They need to just, in a way, see the ball go through the hoop, see the ball go over the fence, see W's on the scoreboard. I think once they start seeing that, a lot of good things will start to come. I hope it begins tonight against Baltimore. I don't know if it will because Tyler Wells is a really good player, and this Orioles team is 19-9. They are not slouches. They are not bad. The old bad Orioles of the past don't exist anymore, at least as of now. Their rebuild has worked. Their rebuild has gotten to a better spot than Kansas City's rebuild is, as they now have good young players and good young pitching. But who knows? The biggest thing I just, again, wanted to put across was there's a lot of baseball left to be played. And I think it starts with believing if they could just go 5-5 on this homestand, just 5-5, I think we could actually believe this Royals team has a lot of good baseball ahead of them. And they might not. And it might go horrible. It might be putrid. And I'm going to want to be very sad inside. But as of now, with bad teams on deck, I'm going to believe that maybe, just maybe, they can actually rattle off some wins this month. We'll take a time out. Coming up next, we'll get some of the comments JJ Picola made earlier today. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Cast here with you. So JJ Piccolo said some comments on Kansas City Sports Radio earlier today, and there's a few that really caught my eye that I wanted to look at. Number one was Jake and I discussed yesterday that it looked like Drew Waters and Daniel Lynch were going to go out on rehab assignments. And that they would each get started at rehab assignments. That Daniel Lynch would get started in Double-A, would make a couple starts in Double-A to get ramped up, and that Drew Waters would be going out to Triple-A to begin a rehab assignment. Well, then mysteriously, the Royals took down their tweet about both Drew Waters and Daniel Lynch beginning rehab assignments, and then put out a new one of just Daniel Lynch, which had us all wondering what was going on. Well, we find this out today when JJ Piccolo was talking a little bit. Drew Waters has had a setback. He had it yesterday. It was a tweak unrelated to his oblique, so he's not going to begin his rehab in Omaha just yet. I hope that Drew Waters' setback is not too long, but I do find that interesting because Drew Waters is the guy that was going to compete with Kyle Isbell for the center field job during spring training. As of now, Kyle Isbell's played the majority of the time in center field with a little bit of Jackie Bradley Jr. rotating in there as well. Jake is very high on Drew Waters. He feels that he, is the one he would see in center field over Kyle Isbell. I'm, of course, myself a noted leader of the Kyle Isbell fan club. But overall, I would love to see Drew Waters back and healthy, but it is interesting to note that Drew Waters did have a bit of a setback with his oblique injury as well, with whatever he, ended up having going on and some of those other difficult things he was dealing with. So that is a bit of a bummer for Drew Waters and what he's had to deal with, dealing with his injury and things like that. A couple other things JJ Piccolo mentioned today. This one I did enjoy. JJ was discussing the Royals hitters and says he likes the improvement in their chase rate last week and the fact that they are chasing less. JJ does say he is disappointed with the start to the season, but good things are happening. He likes what he's seen for the bullpen. He said, quote, "Right now, I feel like the processes are in place that will lead to better results." And we haven't talked a bunch about the Royals offense, especially today. That is something we might dive into later on in this week as well. The Royals offense, and we talk about coaching and approach. I've talked about approach a bunch. The Royals offense, their issue right now seems to primarily be they're pressing. They're chasing too much. They're swinging at far too many pitches. They lead Major League Baseball in a swing rate over 50%. They swing at 50% of the pitches they see. No matter where they are, they're swinging 50% of the time. That's far too much. And you have to be more selective. And that's what we talked about the Royals and their new hitting approach and what their hitting approach was, which is take the pitches you can't do anything with and swing at the ones you can, which is just being more selective. So JJ Piccolo discussing how he has seen it a little bit more and wants to hopefully see a lot more out of them coming up as well. And then there's this, which I'm going to bring up, and then we're going to break it down a little bit here. JJ Piccolo said this about Hunter Dozier. He said, quote, "We know that Hunter has responded in the past. We're going to keep running him out there, and hopefully he gets going." That right there is all I need to know. That the Royals truly are trying to get Hunter Dozier going so they can probably then trade him. I have to imagine that that's the plan. And that's been my thought on what the plan has been this entire time. It's what I assumed that their plan was going to be this entire offseason, because that's what made the most sense, was that Hunter Dozier would be given every opportunity to try and be something. But in reality, it probably wasn't going to happen. I still hold firm that sometime in June or July is when Hunter Dozier will probably be shipped off somewhere, whether that is via trade or via designated assignment. I don't know what that will be just yet. But hearing that from JJ Piccolo today, that, we're going to keep running him out there and hopefully he gets going, is everything I need to know about what they're at least trying to do with Hunter Dozier and what the plan seems to be with him going forward. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully in some way that it will be, what he can be and what he can try and figure out. But I don't know what that plan is going to be when he'll get moved on, essentially. But Gigi Piccolo saying that today does make me fully believe that Hunter Dozier is going to be on this team a lot more going forward. The one I wanted to break down the most, and I want to circle back to here, is JJ Piccolo's comment on chase rate. And that's where I go back to with the Royals offense and how, pitching can only do so much. And at some point, you just need the other pieces to come together. And you need the offense to help out, take some pressure off the pitching to be so perfect, and get some offense to help a little bit, and seeing things like that. I'm intrigued at what's going to happen there. I think JJ Piccolo brings up the greatest point of chase rate. I think will be the first indicator, and the offense settling down a little bit and these guys all settling down, is if they can stop chasing so much, because that is, I think, the number one thing that is their problem right now. They're not being selective. They're chasing far too much. They're not swinging at pitches that they can do damage on, which is leading to a lot more chasing, leading to a lot more strikeouts, limiting their ability to draw walks, things like that. I think this team will figure it out and settle down a little bit, but it is nice to see that from the top of this leadership that's coming from JJ Piccolo, that he recognizes what they need to do to get better. This isn't just about, we're going to keep plugging along and keep the faith and, they'll start figuring some things. It's like, no, this is tangibly, here is the thing I'm looking at for them to get better. The thing I'm looking at is chase rate. And when I see that number go down, I think the team will get better. It's nice to see that even up top, the leadership recognizes that there are quantifiable ways to understand that your team is settling down, that your team is getting better and figuring some things out and doing better things. It's a good sign that I like to see. It's a better understanding, and I really like it, and it really makes me feel more confident that there will be better processes in place, and that this is a new regime that actually will do things a little bit differently than going forward. But that's just a few things JJ Piccolo had to say today, speaking to Kansas City Sports Radio. But the chase rate's the biggest thing. If the offense can just stop chasing, I'm kind of with JJ. I think they will start to turn things around. Take the time out here on My Depth. When we come back, we're taking a look at the Chiefs rookies. Wrapping up this Tuesday edition of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Cast with you. I, once again, thank all of you for joining me for today's show here on 580 WIBW. The list of players whose fifth-year options got declined is finally completed. Only 12 players from the 2020 draft had their fifth-year options picked up. The guys that did are very, unsurprising players. They're all very good. Joe Burrow, Andrew Thomas, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Derek Brown, Jedrick Wills, Tristan Wirfs, Jerry Jeudy, AJ Terrell, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and Brandon Ayuk. We're all very unsurprised at that. Then we had a bunch of players whose fifth-year options have officially been declined. Chase Young, Isaiah Simmons, C.J. Henderson, Mekhi Becton, Javon Kinlaw, Austin Jackson, Clavon Chasen, Jalen Reagor, Kenneth Murray, Cesar Ruiz, Jordan Brooks, Patrick Queen, Noah Igbinoghene, and the Chiefs' own Clyde Edwards-Helaire. All those players are now in officially contract seasons, as these are their last scheduled years with their clubs. That is a lot of first-round picks from that draft that will not have their fifth-year option picked up. I am fascinated by that. Mainly just the amount of guys that just either for one reason or another did not work out into a situation where they should get their fifth-year option picked up. Because for a guy like Clyde, it's very simple. He's not playing well enough. That is what it is. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not getting his fifth-year option picked up because he's not playing well. Whereas, a guy like Chase Young, it's injury. If Chase Young had not been injured, he would have his fifth-year option picked up. It's strange to see a number 2 overall pick not get their fifth-year option accepted. But in this case, it's injury and fair things. And now we'll see if Chase Young is a commander for much more than just this season. We'll have to see. Speaking of rookies, though, guys who it's going to be a long time until their fifth-year options come due for the first-round picks from this year's draft. The Kansas City Chiefs rookies, we've spent part of today discussing where they fit in going into this next season and what their expectations should be at different spots and what they might do. Like I've said, I think if anybody's going to be big contributors in year one, I think the top 2 options for that are Felix Udike-Uzomah, the Chiefs' first-round pick and edge rusher out of Kansas State that I'm sure many of you listening in today's show know quite well about King Felix. And Wanya Morris, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, because I think if he can clean up enough of his fundamentals, he makes a good choice to be the Chiefs' potential new starting right tackle. But the other guys, I think, even with those 2 guys starting as well, as I've said numerous times today, the word is expectations and knowing where to be. And we can all be very excited about what a player brings to the team. But at the same time, I think we all also need to be more cognizant of making sure we don't put too much weight on the expectations of a player. I think Felix will be a very good player. I think Felix will do a lot of good things for Kansas City. And I think he will even do them as early as year one. But I think it's also important we don't put too many of those high expectations on Felix in year one. We don't, we not thinking that Felix should be a 75% snap guy and 8 sacks and all these things. No, he might only play 60% of the snaps. He might only get 3 to 4 sacks, but good development will be important for Felix this season. And as I am as excited as most of you are about his potential in Kansas City, reasonable expectations are what I always try to focus on. Rashee Rice, I think, will be a very good fit for this Chiefs team. I think Rashee Rice fits in as a good Juju Smith-Schuster replacement because he's a bigger body, crazy explosion, great vertical, good hands, can be a good contested catch guy, but also shows that good understanding of the shallow and intermediate routes and the zones and things like that. I think that is Rashee Rice's purpose. but I don't know how much he will be used in year one, much akin to Sky Moore and things like that. So, if Rashee Rice finishes with only, 25 catches and 200 some yards and maybe a touchdown, making sure we don't think, man, and don't immediately react with, oh, we traded up to get this guy. We did all this to get this guy on our team, and this is all he does in year one. It's that idea of, we expected that. We expected him to not, do much. We now know what more and more rookie wide receivers, and that's why the Sky Moore pick is kind of helpful in balancing what to think of, or at least what to plan for Rashee Rice this year. Is we know what a second round pick for the Chiefs at the wide receiver spot looks like. That's what they did with Sky Moore last year, and in a very similar spot. And so I wonder how much Rashee Rice will be used in year one. If Wanya Morris does not win the right tackle job at any point this season, him just developing and cleaning up his mechanics is all you need from him. Shamari Connor, Nick Jones, BJ Thompson, even Keandre Coburn. The idea for those guys, if they all make the roster, is chip in a little bit as you can on defense, but mainly probably be special teams contributors and things like that. That's the idea with these expectations and managing them and looking at it, is they do fit in well with this team. They fit in at good spots. They were all at positions of varying need for the Chiefs this year, and what they're going to do in 2023 as they try and defend their Super Bowl championship and make it back to another Super Bowl in the Patrick Mahomes era. I think these guys all could be bit players and role players in 2023 to get this team there. But I don't know if we should expect any of these 7 players, if all 7 do indeed make the roster. I do not think we need to expect any of the 7 to be major impact guys in year one. The only 2 that could really probably get there are Felix Udiki-Uzama or Wanya Morris. And if they both do, that's great. If anyone else that's not named those 2 steps up also does it, bonus, bingo, awesome, great. Even that would be a fantastic piece and something to add for this Chiefs team going forward. So I'm just so very intrigued at what's going to happen, but I just want to make sure no one puts too much on the plate of these rookies and too much expectation on these guys. We'll know more as we go through rookie minicamp that comes up this weekend, and we'll know more as OTAs and training camp and mandatory stuff and all that jazz. Then we get to all those things going up throughout the offseason. We'll get to see these guys actually playing in Chiefs uniforms. We get to see how they start looking as some things go, and how they start looking and things like that, and all those different pieces and different things. But overall, I think these are guys who can help contribute in some way in year one. But I think that they're better set to be even bigger contributors if development goes as planned coming up in year 2. But no matter what, I really like this Chiefs draft class. I think it's a bunch of good players brought in, and I'm very interested to see what happens with them and what their NFL careers look like in Kansas City. We'll take one more final timeout. We'll wrap things up with the mic drop coming up next. Wrapping up a fun solo edition of Mic'd Up with the Mic Drop. First things first, as always, I thank all of you for joining me on these solo shows. It's a lot more fun when we get the comment section fired up. We have some great, just a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of discussion. It makes it a very enjoyable day, and I know sometimes it can be not as like listening to me have to do a bunch of the talking today and just me kind of espousing my thoughts. I appreciate that all of you stuck around and listened in today. It means a lot. It means a lot when you are here in general, when it's normally Jake and myself and we guys are here for 580 Sports Talk and things like that. It means a lot to us all when you're here in general. But it means even a little bit more to me when all of you stick around it or as engaged and as listening when it's just me running the show solo. So I wanted to make sure, as I always like to do when it's just me doing a show, express my biggest gratitude to all of you for sticking around for today's programming. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And we'll be back with some more entertaining content coming out tomorrow and the rest of the week as well. My mic drop is twofold for today. It's a little bit of a two-parter. First things first, I'm excited to get to see Michael Garcia play baseball tonight. I've been on the Michael Garcia train all year. I've talked about it a bunch. That I think that he is the guy who should be getting an opportunity to, play third base and just be at the big league level because I think he can be a big league contributor to this ball club. I'm excited to see it. And more importantly, with Franmil Reyes being optioned, this is telling me that this Royals coaching staff and this Royals organization is willing to kind of move on or at least try things to get better players up, that they're not going just to hang on to people for an incredibly long time, which is the idea that, man, maybe they'll eventually get going. No, Franmil Reyes was not playing well. He did not play well for an entire month. And so the time has been made that he needs to go to Omaha and maybe figure some things out. And now Freddie Fermin is back up, which gives the Royals some flexibility, which also, to me, means the Royals might make MJ more of a permanent right fielder for a little bit, which is what I've been clamoring for because I think he's very good defensively and right. And I think that's a better move for his long-term career. So there's some nice bits of Royals news with their personnel that makes me just so delighted with some of the things that they've been doing and things that they are trying to put together that, listen, there's a lot of bad around this team right now. Being 7-22 will do that to you, but I think this team is trying to be better. And, man, this is a young lineup, which, if anything, this should be a fun lineup tonight because it is full of youngsters, full of guys getting their feet wet, which means might be rough, might not look good because these are a bunch of dudes who are still getting used to what they're trying to do. But at the same time, it's a good look into the future of what the future of this team could potentially be. And then my last little bit here, I've talked about it a little bit today. I'm so excited for the Negro Leagues Museum to expand. They're going to get a 30,000 square foot facility. Like, they are going to be in a big, gigantic facility, which means they can put even more great exhibits together for everybody and really highlight just such an era of baseball that has to be talked about because has such an impact on the game we love. Like, Dan, I've talked about it. We're baseball guys. I'm a big baseball guy. It's my sport through and through. The Negro Leagues had such a profound impact on this game and the way it evolved and the way that it is played and the way that it grew, that it was a shame it took me this long to finally go to the Negro Leagues Museum, but I'm happy I've now been. I'm happy I've now seen it. I'll probably go back more than a few more times as time goes to never get tired of seeing that place. But I'm excited for them. I'm excited for Bob Kendrick for everything he and Buck O'Neill and others have done to really grow this place and grow what it is. I'm so excited that they're going to get to move to even a bigger facility to get to share even greater memories and greater things with the people of Kansas City and the people of this country. It's great. It's exciting. I can't wait for it. That'll do it for my tip today. Thank you all for joining us. Coming up next year on 580 WIBW, we got 580 Sports Talk. We'll see you tomorrow.